Welcome to the shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and the things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Welcome back to the shadow frequency. I am Juniper, and tonight we are tuning the dial to a place where the prairie is dark, the air is cold, and the machines built to watch the sky suddenly seem to be watching something else. There is something especially unsettling about a mystery that does not come from a haunted house or a forgotten cemetery, but from a military file. Paperwork has a way of making the impossible feel worse, doesn't it? A ghost story can be dismissed as rumor, but a report, a radar image, a transcript, that is a different flavor of creepy. Tonight's episode is called The Minot Air Force Base UFO Case, the object beside the bomber. In the early morning hours of October 24, 1968, something strange unfolded around Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota. This was Cold War country. B-52 bombers, Minuteman missiles, security teams, radar operators, a landscape designed around procedure, control, and nuclear readiness. And then came the lights. Ground personnel reported strange objects over the missile fields. A returning B-52 crew was asked to look for them. Radar reportedly picked up something near the aircraft. Communications became strange, and before the morning was over, a missile launch facility would enter the story with an alarm that still feels like the final chill in a case that never quite settled down. Chris, I want to start with you. When you hear UFO at a nuclear base, where does your mind go first?
It goes straight to the stakes, June. A strange light in the sky is one thing, but when that strange light is near bombers and missile fields, suddenly it feels like someone, or something, is poking at the most guarded nerves of the Cold War.
Exactly. It's not just the object, it is where the object appears. The setting turns the whole thing from strange into deeply uncomfortable. Matt, what about you? What grabs you about Minot?
For me, it's the fact that this case has layers. Ground witnesses, a B-52 crew, radar trouble, documents, photos, and then that missile site alarm. Even if you try to explain each part separately, the whole chain still gives you that something is not right here feeling.
And that may be the perfect way to enter it, not as a wild claim, but as a chain, one cold link after another. And with that, Matt, let's step into tonight's case.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson, produced by Juniper Ravenwood, with Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper. And yeah, tonight's file has that particular kind of chill that I love, because it does not start with a lonely road or a witness looking out a farmhouse window or someone walking up with missing time. It starts inside a military machine. Minot Air Force Base, northwestern North Dakota, early morning, October 24th, 1968. Deep Cold War, Strategic Air Command, B-52H bombers, Minutemen missiles spread across a huge patchwork of prairie and launch facilities. You have armed security teams moving between remote sites, controllers watching screens, maintenance crews out in the dark, and a base built around one promise: if something enters that world, someone should know what it is. But just before dawn, that certainly starts to come apart, because out in the missile fields, men begin reporting lights that do not fit the landscape. Not one flash, not a blink and it's gone. Lights that hover, shift, brighten, change color, seem to drift and then hold still, as though the darkness itself has opened one eye and decided to watch the base breathe. The geography matters here. Minot is not a cozy little airstrip with a couple of hangars and a coffee pot. It was a nuclear nerve center sitting in the middle of a vast, cold grid. The missile field stretched across thousands of square miles, and the launch facilities had names and numbers that sound almost harmless until you remember what they protected. Oscar, November, Lima, lonely points on a map where the end of the world was kept behind gates, locks, alarms, and procedure. And that's where the story gets its teeth. Security and maintenance personnel began seeing strange lights around the missile complex. Some accounts place the activity near the November flight area. Others around Oscar. Base operations start taking reports. Radar approach control gets pulled in. You can almost hear the tone of the night changing from routine to irritated, from irritated to uneasy, and then from uneasy to something nobody wants to say out loud. These are not campers. These are Air Force personnel who know the difference between a farm light, a tower beacon, a vehicle, an aircraft, and something that appears to be moving with its own strange purpose through restricted nuclear country. Now, I want to pull something from the file here because this is where Minot stops feeling like folklore and starts feeling like a folder somebody hoped would stay closed. In the documentation connected to the case, you find witness questionnaires, logs, maps, communications, transcripts, and those now famous B-52 radar scope photographs. Imagine that for a second. Not a dramatic painting, not a paperback cover, but actual Air Force paperwork, typed lines, times, positions, names, a case trying to reduce the impossible into blocks on a form. One of the items I keep coming back to is the sequence of radar scope photographs, because there is something deeply unsettling about a mystery that leaves its face on an instrument. A witness can be shaken, a memory can bend, but a radar photograph just sits there in black and white, cold as a medical scan, saying something reflected back. Something was there enough for the machine to notice. And that is a different kind of ghost, isn't it? Not a ghost in the hallway, but a ghost in the electronics. Then the B-52 enters the story, and this is where the case becomes cinematic in the worst possible way. The bomber is already airborne, returning to Minot from a training mission. It is not scrambled like a fighter in a monster movie. It is coming home. That almost makes it creepier. Radar approach control asks the crew to look toward a reported area for orange glows. And there is even that little human moment, that nervous little joke about somebody seeing flying saucers again. But the joke does not last. On board, the radar navigator begins seeing a return near the aircraft. Close. Too close to casually ignore. Around 3 miles out, according to later reconstruction, and what makes it strange is not that it appears, but that it seems to stay with them. During a standard turn, the return maintains position, and the B-52 descends. That mystery echo appears to shift relative to the bomber, moving from one side to another, then closing distance in a way that makes the cockpit feel smaller. A B-52 is a giant machine built to carry the weight of civilization's worst fears, and yet, in that moment, it became just another metal body in the dark with something beside it. There is a point in cases like this where the language gets very plain, and somehow that makes it more frightening. Nobody has to say mothership. Nobody has to say invasion. They just say there is a return. There is something at 1 o'clock. It is 3 miles. It is now closer. We are having radio trouble. That is the kind of language that raises the hairs on your arms because it is stripped down to function. These men were not trying to create a legend. They were trying to operate an aircraft. And when the B-52 reportedly loses two-way transmission with the ground, when the crew can hear but cannot get back through, the case takes on that awful locked room feeling. They are in the sky over a nuclear base with an unknown radar target near them, and the normal lifeline of communication suddenly becomes one-sided. The bomber can hear the world, but the world cannot hear the bomber. That is not just eerie, that is helplessness with wings. And then comes the turn that makes Minot feel like a story the prairie itself is whispering. The B-52 is not simply allowed to land and file it away. The crew is asked to go around, to look again, to try to see what the people on the ground have been reporting. So this giant aircraft banks through the darkness over North Dakota, and the crew looks down toward the missile fields. And there, near the ground, they see it. Descriptions vary depending on which account you lean into. A brilliant orange ball, a miniature sun, a large oblong or egg-shaped object with glowing features, but the shared image is almost impossible to shake. Something bright and unnatural sitting low in the dark near the domain of nuclear missiles while a strategic bomber passes above it. Not chasing, not attacking, just witnessing. And that may be the creepiest word, because at Minot, the Air Force did not just receive a story, it became the witness. And that is where we'll pause it for a second, because once that bomber lands, the night is not finished with Minot yet.
That is the part that gets me. The military is supposed to bring order to chaos, and here the paperwork almost makes the chaos louder.
It's that radio trouble that unnerves me. When the machine can see something, but the crew can't properly talk through it, that's proper nightmare fuel.
Exactly, and in the second half we get to the missile side alarm, the official explanation, and why this case refuses to stay neatly buried. Juniper and Chris, over to you.
This is Minot Control. We have a light over the missile field, low and steady, but it is not moving like weather, and it is not answering like aircraft. Whatever it is, it keeps sliding between the stars and the ground, like it knows exactly where our blind spots are.
So far tonight, we have lights in the missile field, a B-52 with something beside it, radar images, radio trouble, and a military base trying to turn the impossible into paperwork. And I have to wonder what everyone listening is thinking right now. Are you picturing a mistake, a machine glitch, or something hanging low over the prairie, watching the nuclear age from just beyond the fence line? Chris, take us through the break.
Cheers, June. I'll tell you, what gets me about this one is how controlled the setting is. You expect a nuclear base to have answers. You expect radar, security, and procedure to make the world feel smaller and safer. But Minot does the opposite. It makes the dark feel bigger. While we're all sitting with that cheerful little thought, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using. It really does help the algorithms find the show and push these strange little transmissions farther out into the night. You can find the Shadow Frequency on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast directories. And head over to shadowfrequencypodcast.com for every episode, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to every platform. You can also support us there by buying us a coffee, which keeps the signal warm. And if you've got a story, theory, or something weird you cannot shake, reach out through the website by email or voice message. It may be played on a future episode. June, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Chris. Now it's time to fire up the spectrocosmic message materializer. I'm flipping the switches, warming up the tubes, giving the static a little room to breathe. There it goes. Something is tapping inside the receiver tonight. Not knocking exactly, more like a fingernail on glass from the other side of the signal. Let's reach into the glow and see what came through. Tonight's message is from Danny in Seattle, who listens on Pandora, and he writes, "Hey, Shadow Frequency crew, I usually catch the show late in the evening after I close up the coffee shop where I work in Seattle. I'll put in my earbuds, start Pandora, and listen while I'm wiping down tables, counting the drawer, and watching the street lights reflect off the windows after everyone else has gone home. The UFO episodes are my favorites, especially when there's a government file or some kind of radar trail involved. I also love the ancient mystery stuff because it gives me that same feeling that history is bigger and weirder than we are told." And it says, "Keep the static strange, Danny in Seattle." Danny, I absolutely love that. The Minot taste sounds exactly like your kind of nightmare. Coffee shop closed, city outside, lights in the sky, and nobody quite able to explain what they saw. There's something very on brand about listening to the Shadow Frequency while closing a coffee shop up after dark. The empty chairs, the reflections in the windows, the espresso machine cooling down. And a beautiful case whispering in your earbuds. It's basically a little haunted ritual with better lighting. And yes, radar cases really do have their own kind of electricity. They give the mystery a shape, even if that shape refuses to become an answer. If you want to reach the show, you can send us a message anytime at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. We love hearing where you listen, what topics you pull in, and what strange little corners of the unknown keep you awake. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Chris for tonight's Shadow News.
Cheers, June. Danny sounds like he has the perfect listening setup, honestly. Closing a coffee shop at night, earbuds in, city reflections in the glass, and then Minot Air Force Base creeping into the room. That's how you accidentally make your workplace haunted. A strange new detail has emerged from that April F-15E shootdown over Iran. CNN reports that before ejecting, the pilot told investigators he saw a swarm of Iranian drones moving in what he described as a jellyfish-like formation, with multiple craft seeming to move together as one shape. If that account holds up, analysts say it could point to a major leap in coordinated drone capability. But right now, it remains an unconfirmed report, not an official finding. Our second news item tonight: one of the strangest visitors ever to pass through our solar system may also be one of the oldest objects humanity has ever observed. New findings from the James Webb Space Telescope suggest the interstellar comet 3I/ATAS formed roughly 10 to 12 billion years ago, long before our own solar system existed. Scientists say its unusual chemistry points to an origin in a cold, ancient part of the galaxy, making it less like an alien spacecraft and more like a preserved relic from the early universe. June, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Chris, and both of those items feel like they belong in the same strange drawer as Minot. A swarm of drones moving like one body, a comet older than our solar system, a Cold War radar screen catching something beside a bomber. Different stories, same eerie question: what are we really looking at when the instruments start whispering back? And now in the second half, we return to Minot Air Force Base. The B-52 has seen something, the paperwork has started, but the night still has one more place to go.
52 crew to tower. We have radar contact. Off our wind. Range closing. No visual confirmation through the glass. It is pacing us in the dark, and every time we try to name it, the scope gives us another reason not to.
Thanks, Juniper. And Danny in Seattle, first off, winding down in a coffee shop with Pandora in your earbuds while we talk about nuclear UFOs is a very shadow frequency way to relax. That is basically ordering a latte and asking the universe to make it unsettling. And Chris's news fits the mood too, because whether we're talking about coordinated drones that look like one living shape or an interstellar comet older than our solar system, the theme tonight is the same. Our instruments keep catching things that make us redraw the edge of the known world. So when we return to Minot, I want to pick up right after that low pass, because once the B-52 lands, the story does not simply close. It tightens. The crew has reported radar contact. Ground teams have reported strange lights. Communications have gone strange. And then, after all of that, Oscar 7 enters the record like the last cold knock on the door. Oscar 7 was one of those Minuteman launch facilities, one of the quiet fenced alarm sites scattered out across the North Dakota countryside. And according to the case material, after the B-52 landed, alarms were triggered there, both outer and inner security alarms. Now, I want to be careful with this because the power of this case is not in overstating it. The power is in letting the facts sit on the table and hum. A security team responds. They find the gate or padlock situation disturbed, and an access area described as open, unsecured, or tampered with depending on the summary you are reading. That does not automatically mean the object did it, but put yourself inside that night. You have reports of unknown lights moving through the missile field. You have a B-52 tracking something close enough to become a flight concern. You have a visual sighting of a glowing object near the ground, and then a missile site alarms. Even if those things are separate, your brain does not want to keep them separate. The pattern is too cold, too neat, too close to the locked heart of the base. Here's the second item I want to pull from the file tonight, the official Project Blue Book evaluation, not because it explains everything cleanly, but because it shows us how the mystery was handled once daylight came in and the paperwork had to make the night behave. Blue Book's explanation breaks the case into pieces. Ground sightings become serious. or the B-52, or magnified lights through haze and inversion. The B-52 radar and radar trouble become possible plasma, something like ball lightning. The aircrew's visual object becomes Vega, a ground light, or plasma again. Oscar 7 is separated from the UFO reports and treated as unrelated. And here is our one skeptical angle, because we do owe it to the case people do misidentify stars. Radar can produce weird returns. Inversions can bend light and signals. Military crews under pressure can connect dots that later turn out to be unrelated. A tense environment can make an ordinary light feel like an intruder, especially when everyone is already hearing strange reports over the net. That is all fair, but Minot does not give us one dot. It gives us a chain. And every time you try to explain one link, the next one starts rattling. That is why the plasma explanation is so interesting. It sounds scientific enough to put a neat label on the thing, but it also starts to feel like using one unknown to cover another. Ball lightning is real enough as a reported phenomenon, but it is usually brief, rare, and tied to storms or intense electrical conditions. Minot asks it to do a lot. It has to account for a radar target near a descending B-52, for strange radio behavior, for a visual object near the ground, and for a time span that feels far longer than the usual blink and vanish stories. Maybe there was some rare atmospheric event out there. Maybe the prairie air, temperature layers, haze, equipment, and Cold War nerves created a perfect haunted machine. But then you still have the human details. You still have trained personnel trying to describe movement, color, position, and proximity. You still have a bomber crew making a pass over something glowing down below. You still have the radar scope photographs sitting in the file like frozen heartbeats. And you still have Oscar 7, official or not, waiting at the edge of the story like an open gate in a dream. What keeps dragging me back to Minot is that it feels less like a tale of invasion and more like a test. Not necessarily a deliberate test, but a test of systems. What happens when the system built to detect threats cannot classify the thing it detects? What happens when a nuclear base of all places has to admit, even briefly, that something is operating outside the categories? Maybe Minot was a stack of coincidences. Stars, aircraft, radar clutter, plasma, a security issue, and memory all stitched together by time. Or maybe for a few hours in 1968, something moved through America's nuclear shield with a kind of silent confidence, close enough for ground crews to watch, close enough for a bomber to track, close enough for radios to fail, and close enough for the paperwork to remember. And that is the final chill. The Air Force could file it. Researchers could reopen it. We can sit here tonight and turn it over like a strange coin in the dark. But the object beside the bomber never had to explain itself. It came near, it was seen, and then it left the most controlled place imaginable with one thing missing: control. And maybe that's what Minot really is. Not proof of one answer, but proof that even the most guarded systems can have a shadow pass through them.
That last image is what will stick with me. A bomber above, a missile field below, and something in between that nobody could properly name.
I'm stuck on the paperwork. It is one thing for a person to remember something strange, it's another thing for the files to remember it too.
Exactly. Minot is not a case that needs much decoration. The plain version is strange enough. A nuclear base, trained witnesses, radar, radio trouble, a glowing object near the ground, and one official explanation that still feels like it is trying not to look directly at the thing in the room. Juniper, bring us on home.
Security team at Oscar 7. Outer alarm is active. Inner alarm is active. And the gate is not how we left it. There is something glowing beyond the fence line. And I need you to understand, this place was built to keep the world out.
Tonight, we follow the strange trail of the Minot Air Force Base UFO case, the missile field lights, the returning B-52, the radar contact, the radio trouble, the low pass over something glowing near the ground, and the unsettling Oscar 7 alarm that still hangs at the edge of the story. Was it misidentification, plasma, radar confusion, a Cold War coincidence, or did something unknown move through one of the most sensitive military landscapes in America, close enough to be seen, tracked, logged, and then quietly explained away? That's the question my Mott leaves behind. Thank you for joining us on the Shadow Frequency. Don't forget to visit shadowfrequencypodcast.com for all the episodes, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to every platform. Come back next time because the signal is still moving and the next strange case is already waiting in the static. You guys want to say goodnight?
Good night, everybody. Keep looking up, keep asking questions, and never assume the official file is the whole story.
Good night from me as well. Stay curious, stay careful, and maybe give the night sky a little side-eye on your way home.
Good night, strange ones. Lock the door, dim the lights, and if something bright appears beyond the fence line, maybe don't be the first one to wave.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.